I'd like to call to order the Appointments and Ordinance Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by the Appointments and Ordinance Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairman at this time. We will be recording this on WebEx. I'm seeing none. I'll do a roll call. Vice President Gilmore.
Can you hear me?
Nope, I couldn't hear you then. Thank you.
I'm here.
Counselor Jarvis.
Here.
Counselor Dolan.
Here.
Counselor Elmer.
Here.
That gives us a full council. All members are here. Also, we have some invited guests. Counselor Forgy is here as a representative of the Charter Review Committee. And also David Singer was here also in the same capacity. Can I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of September 14th?
So moved. Second, Jarvis.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any changes to the minutes as they're recorded? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? We're going to move on to the public hearing with a couple of reminders before we get going. One is, if you wish to speak in the public hearing this evening, you want to enter your name in the chat box. Please only enter your name in the chat box and don't use the chat box for asking questions or any other correspondence. Just your name and your street address, and we'll go in order that they're in the chat box. Also, when you're speaking, please unmute your speaker, your microphone. And then when you're finished speaking, if you'll remute that, and that way we stop background noise. And also the same applies for your video. While you're speaking with us, please put the video on if you choose. But when you're done speaking, if you would stop your video, and that helps us with bandwidth. And feel free to mention that if in the discussion, if you have any questions on that. Also, each person speaking tonight will have 3 minutes. After your 3 minutes, an alarm will sound and Clerk Scott will notify us that the time is up. But in order to keep moving, I ask that if you listen for that tone, you'll know what that means. Keep in mind, this is a public hearing. It's not a public discussion. It's not questions and answers. So we'll be listening to the public and all their opinions on the items that I'm about to read. But you don't feel that my committee is dismissing you or not answering your questions, because that's not this forum. This is just to listen. If something is proposed that one of us wants to follow up with any of the constituents, we'll do that outside of the meeting. And that also goes for the mayor's office or any of her representatives that might be here this evening. She won't be answering questions directly during the public hearing. I will now like to open the public hearing at 5:35 p.m. In accordance with Home Rule Charter, the Appointments and Ordinance Committee would hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. via WebEx. Receive public input on the following. Citizens petition of the City Council to amend City Charter Section 2-6, Exercise of Powers. Quorum rules, subsection C. Rules of procedure by striking subsection 3 in its entirety and replacing it with the following new language. 3. All sessions of the City Council and of every committee or subcommittee thereof, shall at all times be open to in-person public attendance, except in cases of a declared local or state public health emergency or a natural or man-made disaster which renders such sessions dangerous to the public attendance. Whenever in-person public attendance is not possible, all sessions shall offer an alternative method for the public to participate remotely, including the use of phone, internet connectivity, or other available technology. All sessions of City Council and of every committee or subcommittee thereof shall be recorded and made available to the public and aired on GCTV. That's the end of that petition. Second one, citizens petition for the City Council to maintain the configuration and dimensions of the Greenfield City Common and its abutting public roadway access as it existed as of January 1st, 2021. The City Council may consider the same on Wednesday, October 20th at 6:30 p.m. via WebEx. Materials can be obtained from the City Clerk's office, 14 in Court Square, 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, or 772-1555, extension 6163. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. And I see from this, let me back this up a bit. I'm sorry. Good. The first person that I'm going to ask to speak is Dawn Morin. Dawn, please state your name and address for the record.
Dawn Morin, 88 Hope Street, Greenfield, Mass. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Dawn.
Okay. So this is in regards to the configuration in front of the town hall. At the July meeting, Councillor Dolan had suggested to the mayor and the chief of staff that maybe they peek their head out maybe 5 times a day to see if it's getting used. The mayor had said at the time she was keeping an eye on it, but then later on at the end of the conversation, chief of staff, when it was suggested, chief of staff said, well, we don't really know if we have the manpower. I don't know if those are the exact words, but it was basically, you know, they just don't know if they can make that happen. So since I live right around the corner on Hope Street, I took it upon myself to take 8 days to go up there 5 times a day, as Councillor Dolan had suggested to the mayor, where they could have just peeked their head out. I actually would take my bike up or ride by or walk up. So September 1st to September 8th, I went up every day, 5 times a day, with the exception of September 4th, which was a Saturday, because the farmer's market was in the morning. So that day I only went twice after the farmer market was closed. And September 5th was a totally rainy day. So there wasn't I didn't expect people to be there. So I went an extra day and did an 8th day instead of 7 days. I could go through each day, September 1st, 10, 12, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I actually kept a tally. I even sent it to a couple of people and to say, this is what I'm doing. And I'm sending this to you because I want, someone to verify that I actually did this. And so in most cases, I took pictures, but to be honest, I don't have a cell phone. So it was most of the time with my Kindle. And if I didn't remember to bring my Kindle up there. But I did do it for 8 days, 5 times a day, with the exception of the days that I mentioned, with that one rainy day and the farmer's market. And I'm not talking about the grass area. I'm talking specifically about the chairs and tables where the road is closed off, where we could normally have traffic. And there was a total of 5 people that were using those tables over that 8-day period, going there 5 times a day. So I know there was a debate on whether it's getting used, not getting used. And like I said, Councillor Dolan had suggested, well, can someone tally? Just watch it, peek your head out 5 times a day. Well, that's what I did. Since they didn't have time, I made the time. So now we know in an 8-day period, September 1st to September 8th, I even kept track of the weather. September 6th, sunny, beautiful holiday. There was a rainy day on September 1st, like I said, September 5th. But the rain didn't start until later on September 1st. So even though I went there 5 times and it was raining towards the end of the day. So I just want it on record that I have been keeping record of the use. And I really don't see there's any excuse for justifying closing off the traffic for every day I'm not against closing it off for special events like we did for the Village Pizza Party. You know, I mean, it works for the farmer's market. We close it off in the morning, we open it back up in the afternoon. Like, I just don't understand what the issue is that. So if anybody would like me to actually email them the dates, the times, and the numbers of people that were there each time, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Moving on, Diane Alice.
Do we have? Now we're on. We have to do that. We have to do. Yes, we do. Okay, it's actually not me. It's Donna, but we're together here.
All right, so Donna will be speaking with us.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
She's
so
using my computer.
could you just state your name and your address for us, Donna?
My name is Donna Festinger. I live in Greenfield, and I'm uncomfortable giving my street address over the airwaves. I'm in precinct 6. So you have mentioned both petitions at the same time. So I'm assuming that it's up to me which one to bring up first. Since Dawn was talking about the barrier petition, I will continue talking about the barrier petition. I've been working on gathering the signatures and have gathered almost 300 signatures. I've talked to hundreds of people around town. And many people have expressed, I would say the majority of those people have been opposed to the barriers blocking off Court Square due to many reasons. Particularly, the barriers inhibit the flow of traffic, create a significant safety hazard for Town Hall, Second Congregational Church, and McCarthy Funeral Home. I've talked to all the business owners on Bank Row, including the owners of McCarthy Funeral Home and people that go to Second Congregational Church. They are not in favor of this, and all those businesses on Bank Row are especially concerned about their businesses and the traffic for customers not being able to get to their businesses. And emergency vehicles such as fire trucks, ambulances, tow trucks, etc., would not be able to move behind Veterans Mall on Newton Place. Furthermore, the access to parking spaces in front of the 5 thriving businesses on the west side of Bank Row is severely hampered. And also, parking spaces have been eliminated, and it was said that there's 3 parking spaces available behind Town Hall, but those are often full, and people have told me they have to travel a circle around Greenfield to find a parking spot, then walk all the way there. Many people are handicapped, have a difficult time walking to Town Hall. And there used to be, when those barriers are not there, there are 15-minute parking spots. There was also a handicap parking spot. This was found very convenient by the people in town to run into Town Hall, pay their taxes, do any kind of necessary town-related business. And so they are concerned and upset that the access to Town Hall is being limited by these barriers. It's also a very unwelcoming look, very unattractive. People coming in from out of town are put off by the look of our Town Hall being barricaded. So I guess now I will address the second petition that I helped to gather almost 300 signatures from all over town and have submitted both to the town clerk and the town hall. And that is the petition to have in-person town council meetings and town committees and subcommittee meetings, which some are now being held in person and some are on WebEx. Well, the continued use of the internet to conduct town council meetings and other town council meetings eliminates the opportunity for a significant number of Greenfield citizens and taxpayers to participate in our town government. Many people do not own a computer, or they do not have the extra money to pay for the internet service provider due to the high cost of these services and the equipment necessary. Many town meetings are currently being held in person. For example, last Thursday's public hearing regarding the demolition of our historic fire station, when more than 60 people were in attendance. And there is really no acceptable reason to continue having council meetings or committee meetings via WebEx or Zoom. I've watched these internet meetings and witnessed numerous instances of the council members themselves losing connection, losing battery power, being disconnected during the meetings, and not being able to vote on votes that are being cast. So it's unacceptable to hundreds of citizens to continue doing our town business in this ineffective and discriminatory manner. So we're
Councilor Gwynn, the time has far expired. This is Clerk Scott.
time has expired. Well, that's the end of what I had written to say also. So we're petitioning this to be opened up into in-person meetings.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let me just check. Diane, Alice, you do not wish to speak, correct?
No, I don't need to speak right now.
Okay, thanks, Diane.
Yes, you're welcome.
Ellen?
Yeah, Ellen Thompson, Greenfield. I think you guys need to remember what your jobs are, addressing the needs of this town and the infrastructure, and stop destroying every last damn thing that made up this town. We had a halfway decent little town quite a while ago before you people started changing this, and every change that you make, it's heaping more and more and more financial burdens on the people. And you've run out the businesses. I don't know what it's going to take. Well, I know what it's going to take. It's going to take waking up these people in this town, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And I think you're counting on that. From what I see, wait a minute. From what I see in this supposed government in this town, it's become a dictatorship, and you people don't want anybody challenging your decisions, and you are not dictators. This is not a dictatorship. The people are the ones that have the power. You folks are the servants. I'm done. Would you like to say something?
Thank you. Is there anyone else on here? Let me look down. Yes, Pamela Goodwin.
Hi, good evening. I'm calling in on my phone because I'm not in town. I just have two comments, and thank you for timing me.
Pamela, I'm sorry, before you start, could you just state your address for the record and your name? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, I forgot.
No, that's
so it's
okay.
Pamela Goodwin. I live at 54 High Street, and I have two thoughts. One is that I'm ashamed of the way people behaved at a recent public comment hearing. It's all over YouTube. I don't understand why people can't be respectful and agree to disagree. And, I've heard from a number of other people who are also pretty appalled. So I am ashamed, and I'm ashamed that everybody gets to watch some very rude, obnoxious behaviors. And I have a number of times, even at that meeting, asked people to be respectful, to disagree, and to act like adults. I'll quote that again. Secondly, I initially signed for the petition about the city square, and I am going to trust that MJ Adams is accurate. When I attended another meeting, she said, it's very possible, I'm not promising this, but this is what I heard, that we would increase the area of the town common, maybe plant trees, maybe have more comfortable chairs, and we would enlarge the common itself and then only have one small lane of traffic that would not be blocked off. And I would like to say that I would be in favor of that. I don't like the fact that it's all blocked off, but I am all for improving and enlarging our town common. and many people have made comments and emails, and I've spent a lot of time and energy, and I'm trusting that in the end, sometime in November, people will be making an intelligent decision that I feel would be a compromise. And I really wish to God that people could learn to compromise and stop shaming each other. Democracy is in action, in my opinion, and when the majority rule, then people need to accept that with dignity and not with disparaging others. I'm done.
Thank you very much. Clerk Scott, did I miss anyone?
I don't
else?
see that you did.
At this point, I will ask, is there anyone else that is with us this evening that wishes to speak at this public hearing? If you could put your name in the chat box at this time. If you're unable to put your name in the chat box and you're on the phone, is there anyone I'm missing? I'm seeing none. Clerk Scott, there we go. Mary Serum.
Can you hear me all right? I hope my audio is fine. Thank you.
I can hear you, Mary. Just state your name and address for the record, and I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Mary Serum. I live in the Solar Village up by the fairgrounds. I feel very strongly about this issue. I think I even wrote a letter. I don't know if MJ saw it or not. I had emailed into her office. I had several points. I looked at that little bypass, kind of like a coronary bypass. I always thought that it loosened up and gave more flow to traffic in town. And I felt it was very useful because, especially for the businesses down on Bank Row on that side, I mean, people always did U-turns to get into those parking spaces, but this has exacerbated it. I've seen many near misses because I have to go up Bank Row to get into town. And I also volunteer at community meals, and it makes it a difficult process in and out of there. It's always a tight parking lot to get in and out of anyway, and having to wait on Main Street to get in to the parking lot can be a problem at times, especially when we have to be carrying food in and out and trying to find a parking place in the first place. I just really feel that, it was probably worth a try, but I just think there's more negatives associated with the change than positives. I think it was, I think it really eases traffic. I think once that is in place, you've got traffic backed up on Main Street. People used to be able to turn down there, and it was really nice to be able to have a quick place to park your car and run in and maybe pay a bill or something. I just I feel very strongly about it. I probably would have signed the petition, but I'm not on social media, and so I didn't know about it till I saw it in the paper. But I appreciate having this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary. Has anyone else joined us that would like to speak before the committee tonight? Seeing none, I would like to ask Christy Bowden to speak.
Thank you.
Christy, if you could just state your name and address for the record. Did we lose you?
He's muted, Councillor Quinn.
Okay, let me see if I can. Hold on, Christy, we can't hear you. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Does that work?
Christy, can you hear me now? Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Christy Bodine, home address is 199 Turnpike Road, Montague, Mass. I'm an attorney representing a client, Tim Grader, who owns a building with a right-of-way access through the road into Court Square, which has been taken away by the closing of Court Square. There's been some arrangements made for trash pickup for the buildings that access their dumpsters through that alleyway. But he has a deeded right-of-way that is not able to be used as it has been in the past due to this closure. So he's really concerned about the permanent closure and the inability to access the back part of his building conveniently if this goes through. So I'm here to put forth his feelings about that.
All right. Anything that else you'd like to add to that, or?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak with us this evening? Kathy, Clerk Scott, have I missed anyone that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. I would like to check one last time. I'd like to close the public hearing at 5:56 p.m. I would like to thank the majority of you that called in tonight and expressed your opinions on either one of these matters. And I thank you for your participation in guiding us as we go through this. Thank you very much. Kathy, do I need to do anything else with the public hearings, or we can move on to motions and discussions at this time?
You can move on to motions.
Okay. All right. Our first motion tonight is the citizen petition to amend the charter for 2-6, which we just heard about. Does someone want to read the motion on page 7? I have it if not.
I can read it. Let me just get there.
Sure, no problem.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to approve the citizens group petition as submitted pursuant to Section 7(6)B of the Greenfield City Charter to amend the Charter of the City of Greenfield, Article 2, Legislative Section 2-6, Exercise of Powers, Quorum Rules, Subsection C, Rules of Procedure by striking Subpart 3 in its entirety and replacing it with the following new language as indicated below in bold text. Did you want me to read this or just?
I believe for discussion, your reference would be enough as it's in entirety.
Okay.
Do I have a second on this for discussion?
I'll second it for discussion, Elmer.
Councilor Elmer. Okay, I'd like to open the floor for discussion on the quorum rules. Is there any counselor that would like to speak to this as we decide the pathway? What we would be doing is obviously making a recommendation to full council based on the citizens petition, whether we recommend to bring this forward or not to bring this forward following the citizen petition.
Councilor Dolan has his hand up. Councilor Gwynn.
Thank you. Let me go over there. Yeah, he's off screen. Councilor Dolan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought it might be good to open with a quick refresher of the procedure for a petition like this in terms of what I know we've been through this several times. I have a general sense of the flow, but what is the council required to do in this situation? And what do we have the option to do?
That's a good point. Clerk Scott, you're still with? Go ahead. Councilor Dolan, did you say something that I cut you off? I'm sorry.
Oh, just that it might benefit everyone in the meeting.
No, I appreciate that. Counselor Scott, Clerk Scott, could you just, I've given everyone a promotion tonight or a demotion or however you want to look at that. Could you paraphrase the procedure on we make a recommendation and then the council moves forward and such? Would you be comfortable in that?
I believe I would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So these both petitions, this goes for both, just so that I don't have to reiterate. Both petitions are allowed under Charter Section 7.6. They can be submitted to either the school committee or the council. Obviously, this one was submitted to the council. It was required to be signed by 100 voters. I did certify the signatures on both petitions. Both petitions exceeded the number of voters required, more than 100. The council is required, or a subcommittee, to hold a public hearing and do this within a timeline of not less than 3 months. The council is also required to vote to consider this within that timeline of 3 months. The timeline expires the day before the November council meeting, which would be November 17th. Sorry for the delay.
No rush.
The council was also required to post a public notice of public hearing in a local paper not less than 7 and not more than 14 days prior to the date of the public hearing. That was done. The notice was put to the recorder on September 28th, and the public hearing date that it was published was October 2nd. So the next step after the recommendation tonight from the committee would be for the council to consider the same.
And remind us, Kathy, if the council moves forward, they would do it as any vote. If the council does not wish to bring the petition forward, what's the procedure then?
So the council is required to consider the petition.
Okay.
So it will need to go on council agenda for consideration, and the council will then make its voice heard by voting in favor or in opposition.
Okay. Is there anyone from the committee that has any questions pertaining to the procedure?
Councilor Gwynn?
Yes.
There was one other requirement that I jumped right over. The council was required to notify the first 10 people who appeared as the signatures on the petitions. That was also done.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Dolan, was there anything that serves your memory that you have to add to that on procedure or what we've done in the past? Anything different from that?
I think that was exceptionally clear. My takeaway from that is basically both of these are required to go to a vote on the full council floor, and it must be done this month. So
correct.
That's very helpful in and of itself.
That is my thought also, and the reason that we're put things forward in that way. But thank you for that reminder. It's always good. All right, councilors, as we're taking a look at the 7.6 and striking out the rules of procedure in 3, which is in 2-6. 2-6. We have talked about 2-6 recently because we moved through it when we did our review of council recommendations from the charter recommendations, and this was not addressed in the Charter Review Committee. Councillor Forgy, is that correct, that this was not brought up in any forum during the discussions for committee review?
Sorry, I have to unmute. To the best of my knowledge, it was not. This came in after.
All right. So I'll open the floor to any of the councillors that would like to discuss your feelings on what we should do moving this forward. And then, we can all bring our opinions based on what you've heard tonight. Obviously, in the public hearing tonight, the majority of the people were here speaking on the second one, the first one only receiving one reference. Councillor Elmer.
This is going to go to the full council no matter what, but we're either with a positive or a negative recommendation or
Correct.
Nothing. Okay. It does seem like we should have language that takes into account the technology that we're using. We've been having meetings through WebEx, not in public, unless another provision is made by law. Was there another provision made by law that allowed us to do these WebEx meetings?
There was.
Okay. And we've also discussed making the meetings, the online meetings accessible and people able to participate. And I don't know where that ended up. There was discussion between GCTV and the tech people at John's On. Can anybody fill us in?
I think we can go back. Maybe the mayor's office can give us any update, or the clerk's office in a second. But let's hold off on that. I want to kind of focus at this point on the idea of what they're asking us to do as far as striking out Section 3 in its entirety. Remember, Section 3 says all sessions of the City Council and of every committee or subcommittee therefore shall be at all times be open to the public unless another provision is made by law, as you said. But right now, all our meetings have to be made public by law unless there's another provision. I'm going to come back to you, Councillor Elmer, in a minute. I skipped over Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Gilmore because I was looking at participants, not chat, and I apologize. So we'll come back. This isn't 1-1. This is our committee meeting, so we'll do what it takes. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, Dan, I didn't mind that you skipped over me. I don't care. We're a small subcommittee. It'll get around to me eventually.
Yes, there's only 5 chances here.
I'd just like to say that the petition, it's already addressed. It's already addressed in there. It's already addressed, and I have to go back between screens, so you might lose my video. I'm not really sure. It says, unless other provisions are made by law. Well, that's the only way that we can go to these WebEx meetings legally is a provision made by law. And that's either the governor, the Board of Health, and the mayor. Those people have to make the decision that we need to go to non-public meetings because of health reasons. That's what we're doing it for right now. And it's just a moot point, I think, to strike through and add all the verbatim that's on here, because that's what we do now. So I just want the people to know that nobody's, that Greenfield isn't making their own laws. These are provisions made by the governor, by the Board of Health, and being followed by the city of Greenfield. So to change it would be just a moot point because it says the same thing in a whole paragraph that a sentence says. So that's the only thing I wanted to address and bring out.
And remember, following up on that, Councilor Jarvis, our committee, when we talk about ordinances, remember the charter gives us the bold definitions, and ordinances come in play for detail. So this is a little bit different, and you're correct. By law, we're following that, and that's what the charter was meant to do. Councillor Gilmore.
I wanted to say something very similar to what Councillor Jarvis just said. I don't feel like this requires a charter amendment because we normally do meet in person. We're just meeting remotely because of the emergency order that Charlie Baker issued, which is expiring in a few months, unless it's been extended without me catching it. But I think it's expiring in April. I don't want to hamstring us because I know that there was some talk from a group that came to us a few months ago where they were saying that they wanted to expand online meetings, not necessarily stopping us from being in person, but having some sort of a hybrid component so that, working folks who maybe get to town a little bit late, people who might have childcare or elder care responsibilities who can't leave the house but still would like to address the council would have a remote option. And I don't want to limit those options because I think while being remote does limit access to one group of people, being fully in person with no remote access limits access to another group of people. And I want to make sure that this is open to as many residents as possible, regardless of whether there's a pandemic.
I agree. Tim, you had a quick question? Councillor Dolan.
Yeah, Councillor Gilmore started to answer it. I was under the impression that the only reason we can ever do remote meetings is because of an emergency order that has an expiration date. So the state law is actually that we do have to hold meetings.
That is correct.
In a face-to-face context. Yeah, nobody has any information to the contrary. I didn't get that wrong. In that case, I agree. This seems redundant and overly restrictive and specific, considering we have a state law that essentially says that, and of course the meeting process is laid out very, very clearly in state law.
Councillor Dolan, I'd agree with you 100%. And I'll tell you why, and I'll go on my piece at this. When you try to get too specific when you're coming through and you get more and more and more specific, I'll bring your attention to a line in this petition that we could not vote for this. It says, all sessions of City Council and of every committee or subcommittee therefore shall be recorded and made available to the public and aired on GCTV. We cannot force a public entity. So that means every subcommittee from every committee has to air on GCTV. That means when we had any commission, anybody, we'd be telling them they have to air on GCTV. We can't do that. We cannot tell an entity they have to have GCTV air the subcommittee of the executive branch or the environment. We can't do that. We cannot preach and demand GCTV to air something. So once you start getting overly specific, you end up causing that line alone would not pass charter. It would not even pass charter. When it goes to the state, they would not allow that. We cannot force an entity to do our work because we think we'd like to hear a subcommittee of A&O on TV. Now, they didn't mean that. I mean, they did not mean that, but that's what they said. And when you get that specific, you go down a very bad path. So that alone, I will be voting to send a negative recommendation just because it's too specific. And you said it and others said it tonight that we can't do this because we want to. It has to follow law to have these WebEx meetings. And I'm a big proponent of live meetings. I wanted to see full council meetings live before the Delta variant. I'll be honest. I was ready to have our full council meetings back, and then subcommittees I didn't have as much of an opinion for because work can be done either way. But we have to follow state mandate. We have to follow a law. So I don't think this is necessary, and I'll be voting in the negative based on it's overly specific, although I am glad we have public meetings, and I just will talk to the mayor's office in how we're doing on moving forward to make a version for people to be able to speak to us virtually at our public meetings, and we'll take a look at that. Councillor Elmer, I know I jumped over you. I said I would come back, because we started and then I jumped back. Did you have anything more you'd like to add?
No, I think you make a persuasive case that the general is better in the charter than specific, and you've pointed out a very good example about why it doesn't work. I would like an update from the mayor's department, if we can, about how we're doing on the hybrid model.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this from our committee? Anybody else?
Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Gilmore has entered her name in the chat.
Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Actually, I was a little hasty. I wanted to get in line for the next petition because I thought we were going to vote on this. I just wanted to.
Okay.
So I can hold my question.
Perfect. As we do this, Phil, Councilor Elmer, before we ask for a vote, would we want to hear from the Chief of Staff if she's on, if there's any updates, or do you want to vote first and then just find out? Does it matter to you? You're muted.
You're in charge, but I would love to hear from the mayor's department.
All right. Chief of Staff Letourneau is on this evening, and I was wondering if Danny might have an update on that. I hate to put her on the spot because I did not ask her to be prepared to answer that. We can't hear you, Danny.
You're not on mute. You're just not very loud, Danny.
Also sounds like a ping pong match. There's somebody that has.
Well, that's not me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
now.
So much for the earbuds that work really well when I'm listening to you guys, not so much when I talk. I was trying not to stream the whole meeting through my dining room, but I did. So yeah, no, thank you, Dan. Yeah, no, you did not specifically ask me to be prepared for this, but I do have a little bit of information. And I know it sounds, I know how it sounds, but from my understanding is that the hardware for having hybrid meetings is on order. I think we are closer to getting that set up for the City Hall meeting room for smaller meetings. That room will essentially become a Zoom room, so to speak. The John Zahn Center is a little more complicated because of the high-tech equipment there. And if I had been able to check with Fernando, our IT director, before the meeting, I would have gotten a better timeline. But my understanding is that the John Zahn Center may take a little longer, but the City Hall meeting room should be ready pretty soon.
All right, thank you for that. That's a great update, and I'm glad we're moving in a positive direction on getting, even if it is for subcommittee meetings, which is outstanding.
Yeah, it would be really cool. Yeah.
It would be. I think it addresses a lot of things that full council was curious of early on. Is there anyone else that would like to add? We have a motion on the floor. Is there anyone else that would like to comment before we bring this to a vote? All right. So I will ask, we have the motion on the floor as read, that the Greenfield votes to approve the citizens group petition as submitted. So our recommendation, a yes vote. Clerk Scott?
Yes, Councillor Gwynn?
So a yes vote on this would forward basically a positive recommendation, and a no vote would be a negative recommendation, correct?
Correct.
All right. So all those in favor of sending a positive recommendation? Seeing none. So this, those that are opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right. So we will send a unanimous negative recommendation as to the full council for full discussion. Now, remember, anyone that's watching this, this is only a recommendation from a committee. It will go to full council. I will have a moment to talk to full council on our recommendation, and then the debate will take its full form, and even members of this committee at that point can vote any way they choose. This is just a recommendation. Second, Councillor Gilmore, this is the second petition.
Yeah, I think.
Would you like to read this?
Oh, sure. Let me get to the right page.
Yes, after the.
Oh, I'm seeing signatures. Oh, sorry. You caught me
No,
unaware.
I do the same thing. There's lots of signature pages. It's page
21.
21. Okay, I can go fast now. All right. The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to approve the citizens group petition as submitted pursuant to Section 7-6B of the Greenfield City Charter for required action by the City Council as indicated below. Pursuant to the placement of barriers blocking off Court Square, we, the undersigned voters of Greenfield, petition the City Council to maintain the configuration and dimensions of Greenfield City Common and all its abutting public roadway access as it existed as of January 1st, 2021.
Do I have a second for discussion?
Second, Jarvis.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councillor Vice President Gilmore, would you like to open up? You had started to ask about this one, so while you're here.
Yeah, I feel like I have kind of a procedural question more than anything. So regardless, I mean, we've all been hearing from folks about how they feel about this issue. I know that there's no way for citizens to petition the mayor's office. They can petition us, they can petition the school committee. But it seems to me that we can accept this and vote in favor of it, or we can vote against it. And at the end of the day, we can't force anyone's hand. And so I'm wondering if procedurally, we should accept it. The charter says we have to accept it because the citizens gathered enough signatures. But I'm wondering if we should have a yes or no up and down vote on it, or if it should be tabled. Just because I don't want people to read in the newspaper that we voted one way or the other. And if, the mayor decides to, either go with or go against whatever recommendation we make, I just don't want that to create confusion for voters. So I wonder if it would be appropriate to table it.
I can't speak for everybody. We can have a motion to table, but let me stop you for a moment and only have a little bit of discussion.
Please.
You are correct in that we can vote on this, but Clerk Scott.
Yes, Councillor Gwynn.
Do we have a legal opinion?
So we have a legal opinion that the mayor requested. It is in the packet. It was also sent to the petitioners by their request. It is on page 35 and 36 of this packet. May I make one more comment outside of the legal opinion?
Yeah, I'd like you to reference the legal opinion, but your information from this committee is always accepted.
Okay, so the council is required by charter to take action on this petition by November 16th. That is the day before the next regular council meeting. So that is one thing. If you were to table, it doesn't change the timeline. There is still action required.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So if we accept the petition from the voters and vote to table it because it's not in our purview, that doesn't count as taking action?
I think the problem that we're going to fall into is the word to table, because table doesn't take action. So I think we could have a vote for full council floor that says, this is our, this is only opinion and informational because it's not in our jurisdiction. But I still think the vote has to be a vote to move this forward. I don't think we can table it because that then stops procedure.
Okay, thank you.
So, if I may, one line in the legal opinion from Attorney Jesse Belcher-Timmy is, and this is, I quote, "It is my opinion that the City Council should hear the petition, but could not grant the full scope of the relief requested for the reasons set forth below." And then he goes on to say that authority is vested solely in the mayor. It is the direct responsibility of the executive office to have efficient administration. And I didn't highlight the next line that I wanted to bring up, so give me just a minute to find it.
Oh, that's right.
The council should hold a public hearing and consider the issue raised before them. He acknowledges that it's impossible to foresee how the council may act in response to the petition. So it's not, it's impossible for him to opine as to whether such future action will be within the scope and the authority of the City Council. As with any action taken by the City Council, the question of proper authority may only be answered after the fact. That being said, it is my opinion that the City Council could not prematurely terminate the mayor's temporary change to Court Square by overruling or revising your action.
I think, thank you, Clerk Scott. Does any of the committee have any comments on that piece of this as we tangle through this? We do have the mayor's office, as we know, on board. Councilor Jarvis?
Thank you. I was just going to say, before Kathy got into all that we do have a legal opinion. The legal opinion clearly states that the mayor holds the trump cards on this, that the City Council cannot force the hand of the mayor, no matter what petition is brought forward. We need to act on the petition. We either give a yes recommendation, a no recommendation, or we just abstain, or you can abstain if you don't feel like given a yes or no recommendation to it. But at the end of the day, I hope that the taxpayers and the citizens know, and the petitioners know, that City Council can't force the mayor's hand on this one. We do have ample opportunity from the mayor's office, as has been stated before, to email our suggestions, our constituents' suggestions to the mayor's office, and they'd all be considered before making a decision. Nothing's written in stone right now. So I do believe we need to take action on this, and the council needs to have a discussion on it as a decision from the opinion. I mean, from the attorney said that no action, the mayor isn't going to be able to take any action on it until we take action on it. So even though that no matter what action we take is not enforceable, it's legal jargon, but that's what has to be vetted at the end of the day. And I believe for one, am going to be voting no on this because we don't have a say in it. we could go on for 16 hours at a committee meeting or at a town council meeting on everybody's opinion on what they feel should be done, which has been asked to be done in an email form to the mayor's office from councilors or the citizens of Greenfield, or what they hear from their individual precincts, or if they're councilors at large, from anybody in the city. I think that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jarvis. Councilor Dolan.
Yeah, I think I might be reiterating a few things.
That's all right.
It was a head scratcher. It really just seems like a petition that was sent to the wrong branch of government. We obviously have no power over this particular issue. It's 100% in the purview of the mayor's office. I would quibble with Councilor Gilmore. Residents can absolutely petition the mayor's office. It's just that the mayor's office doesn't have an obligation like we do to take action on it. But you know, that's the strong mayor form of government that we chose as a city, and you know, that's what the charter says, and there's really no way around it. I would add, there are some technical issues with the way this is written that I think I see. My understanding is basically the city council can do three things. It can pass resolutions, it can make changes to the law, and it can appropriate money. And this is none of those. So I'm actually not sure that even if we voted yes on this, it would have any effect. Essentially, if the council affirms this and votes yes, all we are saying is that such a petition exists. We are not taking an action, let alone an action that we are empowered to take. I'm not sure that this is written coherently enough to even have an action associated with it.
Correct. Let me see. Is there any other counselors that have not spoken, or even if you've spoken, that want to add anything to this? I'll throw a little bit out, and then I don't even know. As we know, Chief of Staff is Letourneau's here, but I don't even know if I can ask her a question, because she's going to say, "You already know the answer." You know what I mean? We don't really have a thing. Now we can all. Here's the big thing: the petitioners did ask the council to weigh in. It's a little bit of temperature test. They want a weigh in. They want and we could all talk. I know I've gotten phone calls. I know we love to say, "Oh, I got all these phone calls," but I did actually receive phone calls on this topic, and some of them will be talking to me. And I think I caught them off guard, because I said, "I agree with you." They said, "Well, you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree. I'm not in favor of the permanent blockage of that road." I think if MJ is now talking about a one-way directional and all of those things, I'd love to see that. I keep going back to the point that the mayor's office told us in the beginning that this was a trial, and it was to see, and it was so citizens would have the opportunity to weigh in as they see if we want to have a permanent change. I would say that they are weighing in, and some of the information they're supplying. I mean, look at the amount of time that Dawn Morin took to do her survey. That's pretty impressive. Whatever way you're looking at it, that she had enough passion to go up there and say that 5 people sat at the paved tables. I know she didn't talk about the lawn portion, because you can drive by there any time of day and there's 5 people, or more. So, I mean, it gets into a very much an opinion, but we go back to what we've all said, including the lawyer. It's not our jurisdiction. We can weigh in opinion, but at the end of the day, whether we say yes or no, I would have to be inclined to the rest of you to say that I would vote no on this, because it's not our purview. And I'm big on procedure and precedent, and this goes right down the track of it's not our say. If the petition had come in a different form, that was surely just our opinion or our thoughts or our recommendations, it'd be different. But it's asking us to change something that's not in our purview. Anyone else? Counselor Elmer.
They're asking for our opinion, and I'm happy to weigh in. My favorite word here is bollards. I think bollards that could go up and down as we need the road to be open or closed would be a lovely solution to the dilemma. And my other two words are food truck. I feel so much better about that space now that there's a food truck there and people are using it and enjoying it, and it's not just empty all the time. I think if Dawn had done her survey after, is it Lupita arrived, she would have had a different result. And so that's my opinion. I'm probably going to vote no for the same reasons everybody else says. It's not our business. Thanks.
Councillor Gilmore, Chief of Staff Letourneau is going to make a comment on this. Would you like to speak before her, or would you like to have them weigh in first?
No, I think that's fine because I wanted to sort of talk about both petitions at the same time.
Okay. Danny, maybe an update, or you can take a stab in any direction you'd like with this one.
Sure. And I do know that MJ Adams is here as well, but I know you guys invited the mayor's office specifically for this. And the reason the mayor is not here is because the school committee meeting coincided with this, just so you know. So I do appreciate all the folks who come to these meetings to speak publicly. I do want to say that. I know it takes a lot for someone to practice speaking in a public meeting, and I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate that Ms. Moran took the time to come up and kind of count on various days. At that meeting, she's correct. The mayor said we could probably do that. I said, I don't know. I tend to be the naysayer in City Hall because I'm the one who's trying to figure out the manpower issues here. But we did try. So we did do a little, it's very unscientific survey of usage, taking pictures. I sent it to a couple of counselors who I have phone numbers for. Councilor Elmer saw some of those here and there. And we worked really, really hard on top of, again, we don't have program staff for this plan right now. So we worked really hard to get programming in there. And as you guys see now, we have the food truck. We spoke with the GBA, and if something moves forward in the future, we have a commitment from them to help us program items there. I spoke with the chief of staff to the city of Northampton about how they did Strong Avenue. We've been doing a lot of work around this. And this is exactly what a pilot is for. So a pilot project, and this is under purview of the mayor. This is one of those pieces that is just under the executive power. And for, whether people agree with it or not, there is going to be, under city government, certain things that the mayor will have, any mayor will have the sole authority to do. So the pilot is exactly for this reason, is to gather feedback and to get suggestions. And on top of, we've definitely had people say they hate it. Nothing we do will make them like it. But we have gotten also some really good feedback about ways that it could be better configured to address those. And that's what I believe MJ was talking about at that meeting. And that was something I was going to say regarding, maybe there's a way that we do a compromise. Maybe there's a way that we configure it so that only part of it is blocked off and we still allow cars. And ballards are definitely something that was part of the original designs back in the slides that are now being shown on the screen out on Court Square. So yeah, we are going to so what we're going to do with the petition is we're going to take the petition kind of as it is, as if it's part of the pilot public comment. And so it is going to, we are looking at it as if hundreds of people emailed individually and said, this is why that we don't like this. We've talked endlessly about, and with, no final decision, obviously, about how we could configure parking and accessibility to people, not just handicap accessibility, but that group of people in the middle that, anybody who deals with elder care will understand. And I've been there, is the folks that don't necessarily have a placard, but can't get in and out real fast. And so we're talking about all different ways to configure parking if we were to close off Court Square permanently. And we've got about a month left of the pilot. So at this point, I do believe you all are right. There is not anything that this council can do to compel the mayor to pick it up right now. We have about 4 weeks left. We have a few more things planned there, and we're going to gather that feedback and then work our way around. By the way, in the back, there are actually 6 spots, and there are 3 handicap spots. So there's 9 total spots in the back, not 3, and they are 30-minute free parking. And I don't like to, it's not scientific to just peek out the window and then report back, but I do work in that building, and those spots are typically open. So.
All right, thank you. MJ, I'm sure this committee, do you have anything you'd like to add? I mean, this is kind of you've got a lot to do with this pilot. So is there anything that you can add? I think we lost you.
You're just muted.
MJ's muted, yeah.
There you go. Let me unmute you. I can't get her mute off either. MJ, I can't unmute you. Maybe let me try here. Yeah, it won't do it. There you go.
Great. Yeah, no, this was a pilot, and we knew that there would be bumps in the road, and a number of the comments that came up during the public hearing earlier, I was on the phone, I wasn't here visually, but I was listening in, are actually true. And the reason we do a pilot is so that we can figure out what the bumps are before we go into the next stage of that. And I think that that's where we are. Clearly, people have an opinion on this, and they've shared it openly with us. If you actually look back at the original plans that are out there, it talks for some flexibility about allowing some traffic, some parking, some passage of vehicles through that space. We weren't able to do it on the pilot program because it was it was a makeshift, Jersey barriers and planters piece. And we'll be looking at this in November with all the feedback and a community conversation about what parts work, what parts don't work, and is there any part of this we want to move forward?
MJ, I have one question for you, and that has to do with Tim Grader's building. Mm-hmm. I know that was brought up this evening in a very specific way. Is that being addressed in the final portion?
Well, nothing's being addressed right now but we are well aware of the easement that he has. That's a 5-foot right of way from Court Square to his building for pedestrian access. And yes, we've been in conversations with him and the other property owners along that way. We did have to make some accommodations to allow the dumpster that's there to sort of sit tight and that gets handled. It hasn't been a problem all summer. We know that the planters get moved around so that vehicles can do access. Ongoing conversations with the owners of the Hawks and Reed building. But yeah, so, I mean, that's why you do a test drive.
And you have been in discussion with the landowners. I mean,
yes,
the property.
Oh yeah.
I didn't want it to appear that they weren't part of the plan and make sure that we're.
I was actually surprised to see Christy Bowden on the chat because we actually had Tim Grader in for a meeting recently. We've had a few in-person conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump back to the committee, and I thank you. If anyone has any questions, we can go there. Councillor Gilmore, you said you had a question, and then or some comments, and then I know Councillor Dolan would like to speak also.
And actually, I think some of what I was concerned about has just been addressed by MJ and Danny. So I do appreciate them being here to weigh in. But I think that I'm kind of feeling bad because I feel like we're being really bureaucratic when, basically, the theme of tonight's meeting is we have some neighbors who have some concerns and, we have our rules that we have to work with. And I never like to be bureaucratic when I'm at work or when I'm at home, but here it's really important that we toe that line. I don't want to discourage people from bringing these things to us, but I think that it would be great if there was a forum, and maybe it's not ANO, maybe CRE is the forum where we can sort of vet some of these ideas that don't necessarily make it onto our agenda And I don't know if President Ricketts is on. I think she was on earlier for the hearing. But I just think it'd be great if we did have a place where we could hear these ideas without people feeling like they're being shot down.
No, I think those are great points. I mean, I was glad to see these petitioners because if anything, it raises awareness. It raises awareness on both things. I think, in the first petition, I don't think any of us disagree with that. It's just too specific and redundant. I mean, it's there. And then the second one, they're asking us to do something we have no authority to take an action against. So it's very difficult for us to sound like we're interested in helping, but in both cases, the petitions were very limiting for us. So it is frustrating in that way because I want my constituents to reach out to us. And I think we all do. Tim, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just I didn't want the meeting to move on before recognizing the mayor's office and Director Adams for putting this project together. I know it's been a bumpy road along the way, but I think regardless of the outcome here, I think the city's approach to this has been really smart, taking this kind of tactical urbanism approach where we try something with minimal cost and we see how it works. And I think I agree with you, Councillor Quinn, or perhaps it was Councillor Elmore, I forget, about the food truck. Suddenly we made some space for that. We made that happen and it actually changed the whole feel. And we're starting to get a sense of what the demand is. So, I would encourage our neighbors to both give feedback, but also wait for these processes to play out, because I think actually the mayor's office is responsive to issues like this. I think there are tons of compromise positions. And I think the reason we do this is because actually cities don't get this stuff right on the first try. We have to try several things before we find the thing that works. And it seems to me like that regardless of the outcome, again, regardless of my personal feelings, that process is working.
Councilor Dolan, I think that's 100% correct. I mean, this, I was like a lot of the constituents that reached out to me. I think, Energy Park was, when I was in office the first time, that was the answer. We did a lot of work down there, and that has kind of, lost a little bit of its shine. And, and my hope is that will come back. I know Sandy Thomas spoke really well on that at the last council meeting, and I had to agree with her. I worked, on that project. And then recently when I saw the food truck, like Councilor Elmer brought up, I thought that was a great thing. And then, of course, my years of EDC kicked in, and I'm like, oh, what do our brick and mortar restaurants think that we now put a food truck there? So I asked some of them, and they all were positive. Nobody said, oh, it's taken my business away, because I worry about, and it does the reverse. It makes the location more appealing, and it brings people down. And maybe this time they eat there, and maybe the next time they walk over and they eat at Brad's place, or they eat at Mesa Verde, or what have you. So I was pleased, but it was a trial. I saw that, Tim, and I'm like, oh no, we have a food truck now. What are the brick and mortar restaurants going to think? And they were all like, oh no, it's good. It's good. So I'm glad we're trying things, as long as we listen and then we come up with what works best for everybody. So is there any more on this from anybody? We do have a motion on the floor that I'd like to take to a vote if there's any more discussion. Seeing none. So we have a motion. So this would be to send a yes vote would be a positive recommendation once again, and a no vote would be based on the majority view, what you were speaking on, where it's not really our jurisdiction, but that's up to you. So all in favor of sending a positive recommendation? All those opposed to sending a positive recommendation?
Nay.
Any abstentions?
I'd like to abstain.
All right, we will send a negative recommendation with one abstention. All right. I thank anyone that was on with us tonight for these topics. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for being here. I thank all the members of the public for weighing in. You are being listened to. You are being heard, and we will continue to do things, to make Greenfield better. So thank you on the people that stepped up with the petition and put the work in to do that. All right, moving on is back to charter work. We have some charter work to discuss tonight, as you might imagine. I've got to talk to a couple of you from last meeting. We have a few things that we did not finish the last meeting that were left in the discussion mode. One of them was Councillor Elmer in 2-6. We were looking at the mayor's compensation, and you said you were going to take a look at that. Is that something you had an opportunity to pursue?
Yes, I did do a little bit of homework there. I made a spreadsheet.
Did we just lose you?
All right. Can you hear me now?
I can now. I'm sorry. I think when I was moving papers, I knocked the cord out of the computer.
I may have muted myself. I did have some numbers. I looked at Pittsfield, Amherst, Northampton, Gardner, and Holyoke. They have different. They all have different salaries. Amherst has a town manager who gets paid $183,000, but Greenfield was not the lowest. It was not the highest. The main thing I learned is that I didn't see any charter that specified a dollar amount. And what seemed like a good way to handle it was not put a number there, but just say raising or lowering the mayor's salary would require a 2/3 vote of the council, and leave the specific number out.
Councillor Forgy, from the committee, and is David Singer still on with us? David, are you there? You can open your mics for this discussion. Obviously, if we can all just open our mics so we can have kind of a roundtable discussion. From looking at where you were, there was a star. Should there be a minimum salary expressed in the charter? Rationale to keep the language is to prevent the salary from ever going below 70,000. If deleted, see below. It is suggested by the committee that the language in section D become the language in section C if the current section C is removed, and then add the following language. Mayor shall receive an annual salary not lower than the benchmarked mayoral salaries of other cities of similar sizes in Massachusetts, or something to that effect if the town council worries about a council going below 70,000. So that 70,000 was supposed to be a benchmark, Councillor Forgy, a marker. That's what the $70,000 was, the intention. Or David, someone want to just update us on that? It wasn't much about the specific or the dollars. It was a below number. It was a 70,000 was so it didn't fall below. To increase it is still in another place. That's not what we're talking about.
Go ahead, I'll let Chris go.
Yes, it is a marker so that it doesn't go below 70. But there was, and I'll defer to David here. There was a concern about competitive wages. So that was what the charter committee tried to address.
I think this is a remnant. This is a remnant from the original charter. To ensure that when we had our first mayoral election and the charter, or when the charter was passed, that the council wouldn't vote the salary lower so that we'd get good candidates for mayor. So it's a remnant. There's nothing important about it, except to the extent that the charter putting in an amount means that the council can't go below that by ordinance. So it's not really, it's, I don't know if it's net, I don't know what is the mayor's salary these days? I don't even know.
It's almost 90, I think.
So it seems to me that it's not going to go to 70. So maybe the committee should consider either just leaving it to the council or setting a benchmark as we had said in there. I think that's really your discussion, not the discussion about 70,000.
Right.
Would be my recommendation.
That was my interpretation. I mean, right now it says the city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately. So, I mean, that's what's in section D. Section C is the one that says the mayor shall receive a minimum annual salary. I remember in some of the discussion on the $70,000, it was so initially anyone planning to run for the mayor would have an idea if it was economically feasible for them to give up what they normally do to run as mayor. Is the mayor going to, pay $50,000? I mean, that's where that came from. And I remember that discussion. I still think, if that benchmark stayed in there, I think 70,000 just says to the world, it's going to be above 70,000. But if financial, global pandemics weren't in our vision a few years ago either, the 70,000 just kind of says it can't be lower than 70. I think it's kind of irrelevant, but also relevant that it's a number. So, it's a number that it can't be lower than. You wouldn't change that and now say lower than 90,000, because that's not the truth. They could vote to make the next mayor come in at 80,000. And then it would be more than 70, but less than what the mayor's making now. I think that has to be thought about where that benchmark comes. Councilor Jarvis?
Yeah, as I stated in the last meeting that we went over this, if I were to be the person running for mayor, not that I'm going to run for mayor, I haven't bumped my head that hard.
Was that something you were throwing out there?
I said I'm not. I would look at that figure and say, no way. I mean, we have superintendents, our department heads, our supervisors all make more than $70,000. I think for me, I'd be comfortable throwing that out and saying that we would use the language that says that the annual salary not be lower than benchmarks of the mayoral salary of other cities and towns within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That sets a benchmark. It doesn't set the low benchmark of $70,000. I mean, because that's ludicrous to be subject to all this torment for $70,000. And then you have your benchmark.
Right.
Your benchmark is the mean of the mayoral salary. I don't think we have to put we don't have to put a number in there. If somebody wants to do research when it comes to a new mayor and say, what are we going to pay them? It's up to the council to do their homework and say, this is the medium. And this is what we need to offer a qualified mayor to run the city of Greenfield. Let's not forget, running the city of Greenfield is a business. It's a $54 million business. That's the way the mayors have to come in and look at running the city, is that they're running a business, and to keep that business afloat, that's what your business is worth.
No.
And we need qualified individuals. And $70,000, I think, just discourages way too many people. And I think that's a way to get rid of it and maybe attract people from outside or other mayors from other cities and towns to come to Greenfield. I don't know.
No, I think that all makes sense. Councilor Elmer, in going back to what you said, what are those benchmarks? What were you finding just in round numbers? I mean, just
Sure. Well, it depends if you include. Am I muted?
nope, you're good. I can hear you.
If it depends if you include Amherst at 183. If you include, I just looked at 6 towns.
That's fine.
The average, if including Amherst, was 106,000. The average without Amherst was. Let me just do that quickly. Average. Without Amherst. Oh, I've done something wrong. As I remember, it was around 90,000. I guess my experience, I would just, it's not easy to compare to find a benchmark because all these towns are a little different. You got little mountain towns, you've got big cities. If you just did the average that included Boston, you'd be in a very different place. So I came out of my little exercise thinking we don't want to get into this business. Let's just take the number out. And anyway, that's my recommendation.
So, Councilor Elmer, when you say take the number out, what do you recommend putting in?
Just that to change the mayor's salary needs a 2/3 vote, up or down, which is basically what we have, right?
It's a money vote.
Council.
Is that what it is now? Right now it says the city council shall, by ordinance, establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately. That's what's in D.
I have to find that. Tim had his hand up.
Yeah, and so did Councilor Jarvis. Tim, go ahead. I can't. You're not on my screen, so I apologize.
Just a quick question about the implications of that. Part of the issue is that when a new mayor takes office under our current system, the salary is automatically set back to that low benchmark. And I remember we had to deal with that when Mayor Wiedegardner came into office. I think under the system that Councilor Elmer is proposing, the salary would be continuous. So if a mayor made $90,000 and a new mayor came in, the salary would continue to be $90,000 until the council voted otherwise. In which case, we don't necessarily need a benchmark. The benchmark may actually be hindering us. Is that what your intention is in suggesting that, Councilor Elmer?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Councilor Jarvis, I'm going to go to David Singer for a minute and then come back and see if David has some.
Again, just for language purposes, based on what I'm hearing, you might want to get rid of the language. You might want to say compensation, cross out what is there now, move the sentence for further compensation to define compensation, and that will be the new C. There will be no D. Then by ordinance, you all can decide how that salary is derived. I think the reason for this is mostly to say who has the power to establish the annual salary. And when will it become effective? If you want to put limits in the charter, I guess that's fine, and I will not say any more about it. But that's, I think based on what I'm hearing, the language in C should be deleted, and language in D should become C. D should be deleted, further compensation, and then you have to decide whether you want to define how compensation is done by the charter, or by case, or you want to make an ordinance. But I won't say any more. Thank you for giving me time.
No, that's Councilor Jarvis.
Yeah, we could get really convoluted here. But anyways, I think Councilor Elmer said, the cities of Boston, we don't have to worry about that because we're comparing them to similar sizes. So in other words, we're not going to compare Greenfield to a city of 60,000 people. We're going to compare Greenfield to 18 to 22,000 people because we're comparing to similar sizes. I mean, That's how they do it when negotiations happen for departments. You go throughout the Commonwealth, you see what fire departments, police departments, DPW departments are making in comparison to cities and towns of similar size. And that's how you base what you're going to pay your professional services. And I don't see why we don't do it with the mayor. The mayor is a professional service that we are hiring. So we don't have to use, wouldn't use Boston, Air, Lexington, Concord. We would use Amherst, Northampton, similar size, North Adams. So I think by leaving similar size in there and we need to get rid of the $70,000. I think it's such a deterrent. So I suggest, I'm getting to my suggestion, that we eliminate C. I mean, we keep C, but we put the language in there to the mayor shall receive an annual salary not lower than the benchmark of mayoral salaries in other cities similar size within Massachusetts, and delete D in its entirety.
Well, I think D has to stay there because it talks about
or yeah, it does have to
get rid of C in its entirety and replace it.
Replace
further compensation would stay intact. Here's my only problem with that. I was kind of leaning towards what David said, only to leave out maybe that. Here's the problem: is whose job is it to pick the benchmarks? You know, Phil said something really interesting. The average when you put in Amherst is 106, which means our mayor's already making $16,000 less than that benchmark. So, because that's what it benchmarked. And we said, you know, it said salary not lower than the benchmark mayoral salaries of other cities. How many other cities? I mean, we end up putting an open-ended number in a specific charter. And that makes I hate to have the charter open to interpretation. And when you say benchmark, then you say, some counselor is going to say in 5 years, well, what cities do we use? What is the benchmark? And then we're starting to define it. It could be defined by ordinance, but I'm wondering if we did say compensation. The city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately. Could we put a line in there based on a more withdrawn, based on a benchmark of similar size stuff? You know, I mean, there we could put the benchmark at the end of that sentence if we could get it specific. That's my only fear, is if we're unspecific, who gets to pick the peer communities? Who gets to pick the benchmark? Anybody else on this?
I'll just add that the Northampton, I think it was Northampton, has a city manager, and that's a different salary scale.
No, they have a mayor.
Amherst has a city manager.
Yeah.
If you take them out, it's 80. The 5 towns left, it's 89,000. But I do feel like we're going down a rabbit hole if we leave in the charter, you know, some benchmark that's not defined. I just don't see why we need it.
How do we feel about it, you know, working with? Oh, Councillor Forgy.
If I could be permitted.
Can I interrupt for just a second? If I could go after Councillor Forgy, I've been in the queue for a while now.
Oh, Sheila, please, by all means, go ahead.
No, Chris, go first. I feel like maybe Councillor Gwen just wasn't looking at the chat. That's all.
Okay.
I'm not seeing it even now, Councillor Gilmore. I'm sorry.
I see it. 703.
I'd like to go back to something that David Singer said. It is important to maintain a distinction between what belongs in charter and what belongs in ordinance. And how easily charter change happens, it's not an easy process, but ordinance can be changed by a council at any time as long as a councillor sponsors that. So I think there's a lot of merit in what David said, keeping those two pieces as separate but complementary, and keeping the basic piece in charter, and then work the details out in ordinance. Thank you for letting me speak.
Councillor Gilmore.
Yes, and right after me, Councillor Dolan asked if he could speak also, just in case you didn't see it. So what I was going to say is I feel like the charter, and kind of going with what Councillor Forgy was just saying, the charter is very difficult to change. We're not going to change it again for 10 more years unless we have like some small little, but we're not going to do a full review for 10 more years. So rather than, benchmarking this and having to update it every 10 years, because inflation, is going to always be a factor. I agree with the idea that Phil had suggested, that maybe we would just kind of leave the figure out, set it by ordinance, because I think what we want in the charter is to make sure that we're preparing against the worst case scenario, and that would be that you have a city council that is just, really hates the mayor and wants to be really immature about it, which hopefully here in Greenfield we don't do that, but I think we see this at the federal level. We wouldn't want the city council setting the mayor's salary at something like $15,000 because of some sort of, political squabble they're having. So we want to make sure that that person is going to be fairly compensated, but we don't necessarily have to have a number in the charter. We just want to take the politics out of it.
Councillor Gilmore, in what we've been discussing, what is that? Let's go down your rabbit hole that you just suggested. Where in the language that we're talking right now would stop someone that, a council that didn't like the mayor to make it 50,000? Where do we have that if we remove the benchmark?
Well, I think what we're talking about. No, for the record, I was talking about 15,000 because 50,000 I think is like at least like livable, but we wouldn't want. We don't want a mayor working for slave wages because the city council disagrees with them. So I think it's important to prepare against that. We don't want this to be like the Russian Duma where people are throwing shoes at each other, right? But at the same time, we don't need to limit ourselves. We shouldn't have people thinking that this is what the salary is going to be when it's just going to be the minimum salary. This is just a stopgap measure.
Right. So let me go back to this again. What language are you recommending for having that stopgap? What's your thought? Because if we eliminate C, the mayor shall receive a minimum annual salary of 70,000, and we look at, are you in favor of the mayor shall receive an annual salary not lower than benchmarked mayoral salaries? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where we're.
By ordinance, and I think making sure that there's a 2/3 majority, I think, wraps it up.
So you would say, and this is me just trying to put it together. The city council shall by a 2/3 vote of ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately.
I think that might do it. I'm
just trying to put the pieces all in some kind of, because we have D, which David Singer recommended as making D C under compensation, but now we're just playing with a couple of words. Councillor Dolan, do you have an opinion on this as we're starting to get down to the wordsmithing of the last sentence?
I have two comments that are a little bit more general. Do you want to come back to me?
No, go ahead. No.
Okay.
It's all good.
I think I like Councillor Jarvis's proposal about benchmarking. I think we talked earlier about the dangers of over specifying. This is a case where we might run into the dangers of under specifying. Like, we would have to very specifically set out how we come to those benchmarks. And with the awareness that if we're giving a list of comparable cities, those cities might not be comparable in 10 years. Cities change over time. So it becomes hard. I don't think it's impossible, actually, but we'd have to really have some tight language. I also wanted to go back to the point that Amherst is a city manager and hires from outside of its residents. And that's part of why the salary is so high. I'm curious why we think that elected officials should be paid less than people on an open job market.
Yeah.
I would, if we are benchmarking, be in favor of factoring that in so that we get the most qualified candidates. So I think any of the proposals are workable that are on the table. I would probably lean towards David's suggestion that we just keep it absolutely simple as possible. Leave only the question of who has power to do what in the charter, and then we take it up in ordinance perhaps at the same time.
So are you on board with it, like the 2/3 ordinance, or, I mean, just trying to, that's splitting hairs, but I agree with Councilor Gilmore that it just,
Yeah, I think for anything money related, I think it should be 2/3.
And that might have to be anyways. It might be redundant. Councilor Jarvis, can we go back to you? Where are you in this thought? Because I mean, I don't disagree, because I still don't know if we have a benchmark in that statement, because I'm worried that
I would hope, Dan, by ordinance that we would be setting that benchmark as we're moving forward. So I am in favor of doing this. I am in favor of completely of removal of C of the minimum salary.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm on board with you guys. I mean.
So
I have faith in the city council. They're going to be fair and equitable when they set the mayor's salary.
Councilor Elmer?
I'm ready to suggest some language.
Well, let me just give you, I just want to keep us on format. Sure. I would think that what we are doing is we are leaving C, compensation, the word compensation, and we're moving the definition of further compensation, starting with the city council shall, and then we move forward with that, because that's what David said, and then we can put everybody's language into a single sentence there by saying that. So Councilor Elmer, do you want to pick up from there?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest make it a separate sentence after become effective immediately. Any change in the mayor's salary requires a 2/3 majority of the council. And then,
Councilor Forgy, can I ask, is when it comes to financial decisions, does it require 2/3? Do we need that? You're muted.
Any money vote that council takes needs 2/3.
Okay. So I don't know if we need it, because then we'd be redundant. Anyone disagree with that?
That's the law.
Okay, so I think we don't. Councilor Elmer?
Just a slight difference. Council, without that sentence, the council can't change the mayor's salary. Or I misread that.
So it would say compensation. The city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately.
Right. Does that give the council the right to change the salary?
Opinion? You're establishing an annual salary. You're asking where are you asking about the change, Councilor Elmer? Like mid. The
added sentence would give the council the a path for.
Well, it also says annual salary. So yeah. Annual is annual, right?
Does that mean the council has to establish a salary every year?
No.
Does it mean the council can change the salary from one year to another? David might have a legal opinion.
May I?
Yes, David.
Word annual doesn't mean you have to act annually. The word annual means that's the yearly salary of the mayor. And
is it your understanding that it can be changed by council vote at any point?
Yes.
Okay. So, Councilor Elmer, back to you.
As long as you don't restrict the council by the charter.
But okay, and I don't think
and the council can do what they normally do, and then they can codify their procedures by ordinance. If you put it in the charter, then the council's hands are tied by the charter.
Okay.
So that's why you want to be careful to just leave it as who's got the power, the council. What do they have the power to do? Establish an annual salary. When they establish the annual salary, unlike the counselors who have to wait 3 years because it's a conflict of interest, that salary becomes effective immediately. So you've said 3 things in that very short sentence. And the by ordinance gives you the right to go and do your thing.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
That's just my suggestion. I'll get off again, but that's what I'm trying to.
That's what
you're talking about good things, but you might just want to make a hierarchy of how.
We know what happens when you get too specific. We just saw that.
I actually have a question for David very quickly about what he just said. So if we're talking about doing this via ordinance, that's something that, I mean, you and I both know that's something that can be revised at any time, not like the charter, but is there any kind of trigger in an ordinance that it would have to be reevaluated every year? Because I worry that we don't want it to stagnate anywhere, really.
No, so the council votes and says the annual salary for the mayor is $90,000. That's it. And then the mayor complains 3 years later and says, "Hey, I want to raise." You say, "Oh, maybe we will, maybe we won't." But it just stays that way until you vote again.
And we already have by ordinance in the charter presently. I mean, that's a line that's in our current charter.
Just if I may jump in,
yeah.
I think we're also not limited to passing just a number in an ordinance. We can pass a number with a percentage increase based on inflation annually. We can pass a lower benchmark. We can pass a benchmarking requirement by ordinance. We can do a lot of things by ordinance, which we won't have to do probably for a few years until this comes back and is approved by the legislature. But actually, by leaving it broad, we can put those, pretty much all of the options we've been talking about in at a later time, and it's just more flexible.
I agree. Councilor Elmer, you are going to make a recommendation on this because we are talking about Article 3, Section 3-1, Section C. That's where we are.
Right. I would recommend that we keep the word compensation in, delete the rest of that sentence that ends with a number, and then have it pick up at the city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately. That's what I recommend.
And striking Section D.
Yeah, I've moved section. Yes.
That's a motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second, Jarvis.
So the motion's been made and seconded to have C compensation. The city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor, which shall become effective immediately. It's been seconded by Jarvis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Am I missing any? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation on Section C. There is no Section D. All right, that was there. I do want to, the only other section that is still in discussion is the city clerk Section B, and we're going to leave that. I've asked for some legal opinion curtailed to that and whose oversight, and I haven't received that back. So let's move forward and I'll get back. But going in order, we're now caught up except for that one piece. All right, moving forward. Section 3, Councilor Forgy, do you want to lead us through some of the stuff that is in discussion here? There was no recommendation for, does anyone have any other recommendations as we move forward? We're now moving to 3-, we've left 3-2. We're now moving to 3-2. 3-3, I'm sorry. Is in section of the committee to add after civil service law, or, oh, you did this. This is the ones you did, right? At the last meeting, is that correct?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm sorry, because this isn't in the agenda, I'm having trouble finding it. So I may just be a minute behind.
We're on page 18 of the
final
recommendations.
The final recommendations, yeah.
Yes. Chris, is that where we left off? I'm sorry. Is that where we were going forward?
If the agenda, section 3.1, Article 3, executive branch, we did that. We did
Right.
that. Hang on just a second.
It looks to me like the next change was in 3-8.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sheila.
I think that's where we are. Yes, because that's what I have starred. So we're moving to 3-8, and that was the temporary absence of the mayor piece.
Did we make the changes in 3-3 that are highlighted? They're
Hang on.
Point of order, we can't because it's not in the agenda. It's not written on the agenda. 3-3 is left off of the agenda, correct?
okay. Right.
The
So
agenda starts.
we can't
the
really
agenda-
address it until it gets put back on the agenda.
Correct, because there was no recommended changes, I guess, for 3-3. That's why so we're at 3-8. You are correct. So let's go to 3-8 at this point in time, because 3-3.
There were changes recommended in 3-3, but we can't discuss them.
Correct.
But they're already, excuse me, sorry to barge in. Are they already out? Sheila, this was what you accomplished in your
Yeah,
in taking
you
that
already.
over?
I
They're
think you
already
already
out
made
to
the
the
recommendation.
attorney?
I believe so. I'm actually looking through my email right now to verify that information. So if you want to move on to 3-8 while I verify that, I will report back.
All you have to do is look at our minutes.
Yes.
Look at the minutes of our last meeting.
Oh, good call. Oh, okay. I was looking for an email. I'll go to the minutes.
And we can, I believe that's what I was referring to, that it already went forward. I think we just had to backtrack on the others.
So last minutes I'm seeing in Drive are from August. Give me a moment. I can let you know.
Minutes.
This is
On
what happened.
page 4 of the agenda where it gets discussed 3-3.
I think you already forwarded a recommendation. September 14th meeting,
Yes.
2-10. Yeah, 3-3 appointments by the mayor. That was the ones we did. And then 3-6 you took care of. A motion 3-6. So you did those. That's what you did last meeting.
Yep, I see it.
You did, that's why you did 3-4, you did 3-6, that left us with 3-8. So those are done. And you've already sent those ahead. So now we're back to where we were on 3-8, and that's why, because those have already been discussed by this committee, except for the two that I went back on because you had skipped over clerk and mayor compensation. Now you're at 3-8. Councilor Forgy, this was a temporary absence of the mayor. the two pieces here were the mayor requested taking it from 10 days to 15 days.
That's correct.
And remember, I just want to, once again, after we vote these recommendations, they have to go to the mayor's office, and the mayor needs to sign in the affirmative of these changes also, or they don't happen. So some of these things that are a simple number or something that we really don't have a huge problem with, if they're recommended by the mayor, she's going to have say in it anyways, because she has to review all of these changes before they go to the legislator and legislative state. So she said, so after discussion, including reviewing the mayor's suggestion, the committee recommends the period of days be increased from 10 days to 15. Business days defined as Monday through Friday, except for holidays. I asked a former mayor if they, what the thought was 10 versus 15. Former mayor this was just a number to give before the council president would take over as mayor. It changes it from 10 to 15 days. That's all this does.
That's correct.
Any discussion from the committee on this point?
David would like to speak.
David?
So let me give you a perspective of this provision. You've got the mayor going on vacation and who's in charge. You have the mayor having a minor disability, who's in charge. And I think it was Sheila who actually said if she had as vice president to be the acting mayor, it'd be very difficult for her because she has a full-time job. And that, so we added the language that person from the council, either the president or the vice president, would get assistance from the chief of staff, for example, and would make decisions, but wouldn't have to be in the office every day.
Yeah, that's the second.
And then if it's past 60, yeah, and then it past 60 days, something else would have to happen.
Yeah,
so
that's already in there.
We broke it down into right. So that was the thinking of what would happen in the 60 days, and the 10 days was too short because the mayors tend to go away for more than 10 business days. So it meant that the city president of the city council would automatically become mayor, and that seemed inefficient. So that was the reason. Thank you.
So let's leave *1 star 1 right now, the 10 days. Let's just stay in that realm right now. Does anyone have a problem with the 10 going to 15? Any reason? Anyone? Okay, so let's leave that. Now the second part is what David was just talking about. If you see the double stars on section A, and this refers back to maybe what he was saying with Sheila, after discussion, the committee recommends that the following language be added after the word mayor. And the mayor's qualified city officer or city employee designee shall assist the acting mayor in their duties of the office during the absence or the disability of the mayor. I just got to say, I would agree with Sheila if that's true and what she said. If I became the acting mayor, I'd want somebody that knows the day-to-day play to assist me, because you're not going to walk in as the council president. And then I was the acting mayor when Mayor Forgy left the country for 10 days. She went to Europe. And I was the mayor for, I don't know, maybe a week. And, nothing major happened, but I was the acting mayor by statute. If I had to do and this is where I'm coming in agreement with this, if I had to do anything major, I would have had to have leaned on someone like Lane Kelly or Dennis Helmus, because I don't know the day-to-day action. You know what I mean? So I would agree. I think that's an important piece. David, did you have something?
Yeah, and to add to that, Mr. Chair, the word shall was put in so that the person who's president or vice president of the city council can't object to the assistance. So the assistance has to be allowed because the president of the council and the vice president of the council were not elected mayor. So while they have to make important decisions, we have to say that they need to have assistance from the mayor's office. That's why that was put in there.
Thank you. Councilor Jarvis?
I'm sorry, Sheila was before me.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go back to chat because if I can't see it all online. Go ahead, Councilor Gilmore.
Yeah. So I think that some of the comments that I made. So obviously what you had just talked about with, if you've got a full-time job outside of the city, and then all of a sudden you become the acting mayor for a minute, you need someone to be able to lean on. And we also don't want people, becoming, going rogue and, just like making huge changes without any kind of authorization or input. But the point that I was making about, being, working full time. So that was more related to the succession. So if something happens and the mayor is permanently vacating the position, if Roxanne wins the Powerball and she moves to Belize, and then Penny Ricketts becomes our mayor, as the vice president, I feel like it's important for us to have a new election, because someone who might be willing to run for vice president might not be willing to run for council president. And also, it's a good time for a reset anyways, because maybe if the council is not in favor of their vice president becoming the president, because we don't know what could happen, or what other sort of responsibilities that person has. It's an opportunity for a reset. But I don't think that's addressed in this exact part of it.
No, correct. This
yeah,
part.
so I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. David, Sheila, I think now we're Councilor Jarvis. Yes.
It's confusing, huh?
Well,
Anyway,
the problem is if I open the screen to see everybody's faces, I can't see the chat. And then I miss people raising their hands. Now I know what Penny goes through.
Yeah, I would just like to say that we do that it has to say shall. We need to keep that word in there, because not only the council president or the vice president don't have a clue who the major players are. Either, never mind in Greenfield, but in our district in Boston. I mean, these are, let's use Danny because Danny's now second in charge. She knows the key players, and whoever steps in there is going to need assistance. And we don't want somebody just saying, no, according to the charter, I'm in charge. So we do need the word shall in there. And yeah, that's all I had to say about that. I think we're all in agreement to that.
That's what I'm saying. It looks like we're all in agreement. Is there anyone that has a different thought?
I'd be willing to make a motion that we accept the charter changes as proposed.
Okay, so we are going to recommend that 15 business days, and the additional line that says after the word mayor, and the mayor's qualified city officer or city employee designee shall assist the acting mayor in their duties of the office during the absence or disability of the mayor.
So moved.
Dan, can I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
Counselor 4G is in the chat, and I'll volunteer. If you're having a hard time seeing the chat and also seeing all the participants, I'm happy to monitor the chat if you want to come back to me and just, I can let you know who's next.
I pass. Thank you.
Okay. My offer stands.
Thank you. Is there, so
I'll second that motion.
okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We will send a positive, unanimous recommendation for those changes. All right, that brings us to, it was 3.8A and 3.9 B. Is that right? 39B, 39B, which is council election. Is this this is the next piece?
Yes, this is where I was trying to point out. So David was talking about some points that I had raised, and my points were more relative to this section than the one we had just discussed, and that's what I was trying to point out.
Okay, so this one, Councillor Forgy, do you want to paraphrase what's going on with this one?
It was just suggested by the committee to add additional language that addressed after what happens in this process. So it seemed like the next logical step. And it's just to add language after a new election of officers is conducted by the city council as provided for in section 2-2 D.
Which we did send a positive recommendation for.
Correct.
Anyone have any discussion on this piece?
Wait, I'm sorry. We sent a recommendation already? Because I don't remember taking this one up.
No, this needs to be voted.
No, on
2.2 D, that's done.
2.2 D, Sheila, the last, when it references 2.2 D.
My mistake. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So now we're on, so all I was saying was it said as provided for in section 2.2 D, which has already had a recommendation for it. So what is, where do we want to, Councillor, I'm sorry, David?
I just want to support Sheila with this. This is really basically the opportunity. If Penny Ricketts became the mayor and Sheila said, well, I don't want to become, I wouldn't want to be elevated to president because then I would be next in line for that. Or maybe I don't want to even be vice president now because that might pose a problem. It creates a new election cycle for the council, which addresses that issue.
Yeah, so by adding this line, it addresses that concern. We lost David. Okay, so Sheila, yes. Councillor Gilmore, so by adding this line, is David back?
So there would just be a new election. So the way it happens now is the first business day in January, we vote on a new president, vice president, and treasurer. So this is saying that in the event that there is a permanent absence of the elected mayor and the council president becomes the mayor, it would reset us and we would just have a new election of city officers, which could be beneficial for any number of reasons.
Any discussion on this from any of the council? Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we submit a positive recommendation as suggested by the committee, written below.
After a new election of officers is conducted by the city council as provided for in section 2-2D.
Correct.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it. Elmer.
Dolan. Okay. All right. All those in favor of a positive recommendation?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none. Okay. I'm going to deviate a little bit. Article 4 is the school department.
Point of order.
Yeah.
If I could. Do you have a sense of how long we're going to be going tonight?
Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. I'll tell you why. And let me finish, and then you can change my mind. All right. All right. Section 4 is the school department. Two things that I really want when we do the school department. I think it would be pertinent to ask Amy Peretti, who's the chair at this point of the school committee, to be with us on this discussion, because some of this stuff, as I was reviewing it with Councillor Forgy, it was talking about their makeup and their rules and procedures, and I just think it would behoove us to have them there to answer questions. And also, Councillor Wheeler, who was on the Charter Review Committee, he took on this school department piece, and he was not able to be here tonight. So I think it would be best if we skip over Article 4. because of the reasons I stated. Anyone have a problem if I do that? Okay. That brings us, it doesn't mean we're ending the meeting. It means we can go to section 5, which has very, very limited recommendations. And then we can actually finish, we might be able to finish 5. So Councillor Forgy, as we spoke on today, Article 5.
Article 5 is on page 28 for everybody. The language changed, and it came both from council and school committee members, talked about the way in which we communicate, how we definitely get our information out to the public to post for hearings and meetings. And following on the discussion we had this evening about virtual meetings, I think that the committee was looking to add to advertising not only in the local newspapers, but to add the phrase in the city website or on the city website. And you'll see it asterisks up there.
Is there any discussion on adding that phrase "and" on the city website for listing that information? It's Councillor Dolan.
I would just say that city website should not be capitalized, I think.
We can take that on the full council floor, and we'll have Tammy note that in the minutes.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
The city website is awfully specific for a charter. I would, and frankly, it could be that we communicate most effectively on Facebook. We won't know in 10 years. In a local newspaper or other electronic means, I'm not quite sure the best way to put it, but I'd rather it be vague than this specific. David has his hand up.
David?
Well, if you read the charter and you see local newspaper and city website, you'll know where to find the information. If you say other medium, you would have no idea.
That's a good point.
Any other thoughts on this? I'm fine with adding city website. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we add and on the city website, and we don't uppercase city or website.
Can I have a second on that? Seconded by Dolan. All those in favor of sending a positive recommendation to change the phrase to "and" on the lowercase city website. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none.
I will abstain because I had to step away for a moment.
Okay, Sheila, thank you. One abstention. I believe moving forward, there were no other recommendations in Article 5. Is that correct?
Page 29, there was nothing. Page 30, there is one small asterisk, last large paragraph of the page. And it looks like it needs a little language change. And I think that change is after city council, and the word should be "and."
In writing to the city council.
A request for a transfer of funds from one municipal agency to another shall be made by the mayor in writing to the city council and shall include a statement.
Any discussion on this?
I move that we make the changes suggested.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation.
Page 31, there's no changes. Page 32, there's no changes.
Motion to adjourn.
Hold it. One moment. Lou.
No. Go ahead.
David, I did call you if you want to call me back.
I have to ask all of these questions first. Any new business?
I got your message.
Do we have any new business? Any old business? We've kind of talked old business.
I do have some old business.
Counselor,
I would like to, I'm not sure we've opened up the discussion about how long people would have to collect those signatures. Again, I would like to see this proposition pass. And I think if we gave people a few more days, it would disarm the opposition. And I don't know when we bring that up, but I just want to put it on, put a pin there.
On the charter question on the ballot?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we're past those. That train's left. You know, that's where it's already. The ballots are printed or something, so we're past that.
Well, I don't believe the question of how many days is part of that language.
Okay, let me look into it and see where that would enter in. But okay,
I move to adjourn.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just check. That was old business? Yeah. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? Next meeting is November 10th. Just so you know, all of the changes we made at the this is September, August meeting are going to be on the full agenda. We've got the language by the town attorney, so those will be on the full council agenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, and I can send you an email, but I'm going to be out of town on the 10th because we've got a family wedding.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Councilor Gilmore. I appreciate that. Anyone else? Now, Phil, I'll entertain your motion.
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We'll adjourn. All in favor of adjourning at 7:52 p.m.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Everybody log off, please. Everyone. Dan, don't close it till everyone logs off.
Yep, that's what I'm hanging.
Thanks. Come on.
Diane Alice's line is still open.
Yes. Yeah. That's what happened last time. We'll just close out then. Yeah.
I'm going to expel them. Let's see how that works.
Yeah.
Yes, I expelled them.
All right. Perfect. All right. I'll get off. Thank
All
you.
right.
Good job.
Thank you, Penny. Good night.
Good night.